What is up, cinephiles? Welcome back to Screen Kings. Today's movie comes from Apple TV Plus. It's called The Tragedy of Macbeth, directed and written by Joel Coen. Obviously, this is an adaptation slash reimagination of William Shakespeare's play. And that being said, I think it's best if you already have a knowledge before going into this movie, because I think this is the type of movie that will be best appreciated if you are well versed with William Shakespeare's play. Not that you needed to be really well versed, but at least you have a knowledge of what the story is about from top to bottom, because this is basically a deconstruction. So if you don't have that stock knowledge ready yet, I suggest you go watch one of the previous adaptations, though I've only seen Justin Kurzel's Macbeth back in 2015. Or if you don't have the time, just go ahead and read the Wikipedia summary. I think that also serves the purpose. Anyway, as I've said, this is a deconstruction. You know that feeling when you go into a posh restaurant and you are served with this deconstructed dish where it tastes familiar and different and exciting at the same time. This is how I felt while watching this movie, because Joel Coen's direction and vision is just one of a kind. He really pulls it off. You have that expressionism side that is present on a stage work, and he also utilizes the cinematic tools, the visual effects, the musical score by Carter Burwell that just gives me the chills. It's heavy on symbolism, but in a matter of showing rather than telling. Also, Coen here, what I appreciate is he makes his own identity in bringing this almost experimental film, but he does it in a way that how would William Shakespeare will interpret this movie. All of his creative liberties that he did in this film, I don't think it will upset any of the purists, because he really held what is the whole theme of this movie, which is madness, power, greed, themes that are just timeless regardless what the current crisis is. And watching this movie makes me realize how timeless Macbeth is. Of course it is. It's already 400 years old. This is a type of material that you can approach and experiment whatever genre you want it to be. You can do thriller, you can do drama, you can even do a black comedy, and I can see it working. Joel Coen here did something of his own. It's something that falls in the middle ground of being a stage production and a film, which usually feels like an awkward space, like a disastrous place, but in here it really works. Now, I'm not gonna pretend that I understood half of the dialogues delivered here, because the English here is I'm just way out of depth when it comes to the dialogue. And that being said, it helps that I know the bare bones of the story, so even if I'm not entirely sure what this character said, I just have to go with the flow. And normally when I encounter these dialogues in a text form, I will read them over up to 3 times to understand what they truly mean. But you don't have the luxury when watching a movie, because you can't just keep rewinding the movie, because it will distort the flow of the movie. So yeah, you really need to be acquainted or have a knowledge of Macbeth, because it will be a challenging view. Anyway, I think this movie really makes its mark, not because of its dialogue or the performances, though I think those are all magnificent. I think this movie deserves a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay, but I think it's more on the technical aspects of the movie, which are the images, the sounds, the visual landscapes, the cinematography. And normally that kind of approach will fall on the style over substance, but not in here, because I already know the context of the story. Seeing this movie called The Lighthouse, which also takes a similar black and white cinematography approach. No matter how gorgeous it is, I'm not a huge fan of that movie, because it didn't connect to me on a human level. And the advantage of Macbeth and knowing the story behind it is I already know the plight of the characters, the themes to expect, and whatever subversions that Joel Coen brings to the table is just something that I can appreciate. Now, I gotta give here to the cinematographer Bruno Del Bonel. His black and white cinematography really captures the cold and stark and the harshness of the surroundings here. The production design, they're minimalist when it comes to its approach. I would liken it as a Greek production, because it's just plain walls, plain stares. And with that 4:3 aspect ratio, it feels like you're trapped in the world with them. You're just locked into their emotions. Even the outdoor scenes here where the earth just looks like an unhospitable place to live, you can feel the sense of gloom that's just never really letting go of you throughout the entire movie. Since we have a monochrome cinematography, it also emphasizes the play of light and shadow, to which I think cinematographer Bruno really did great here. I think this is a type of production design that deserves a nomination because it's minimalist, but it maximizes the mood. So it's something that only theater productions can do. Now, when it comes to the performances, we have here Denzel Washington playing Macbeth. He's basically a wittier version of this character. The last time I've seen Denzel take on such a heavy dramatic role is Fences. And in here, his version of Macbeth is somewhat of a relaxed character. It's less theatrical. He has this remarkable sense of control over the dialogue. He has this imposing dominance throughout the film. Once he wears the crown, there you go, we have a king right in front of our eyes. Then what I like about his performance is he complements well Frances McDormand here, who also throw out her lines as if it's a modern script. Now there's gonna be a lip when it comes to the character of Lady Macbeth because she's the one who's driving him to do these horrendous things, and she will be locked in this place of guilt. So that being said, I think Frances McDormand sells the transition really elegantly. However, because I'm gonna keep on comparing this movie adaptation to the only other version of Macbeth that I've seen, which is Justin Kurzel's Macbeth back in 2015, I think I like the dynamic of Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard a little bit more than Denzel and Frances here, because that age where you're really corrupted with power is more aligned to the age that Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard has. And it's interesting that when you put this work side by side, we have here Justin Kurzel's work that operates on the real world, and we have characters giving out more theatrical performances, which I think fits more for the material. And then we have here Joel Coen's work, which is basically feels like it's set on a fever dream. And then we have here characters acting more grounded to balance the movie. I like both versions, and technically speaking, the superior one would have to be the Tragedy of Macbeth, Coen's version. But the edge of Kurzel's version here is I was able to resonate more with the characters just because it operates on the real world. But enough of those characters. I think one actress in this movie that deserves recognition is the standout Catrin Hunter as the witch. I like Coen's approach here that he reimagines the three of witch as only one person, and the other two sisters are basically just hallucinations of Macbeth here. And yeah, I think this is a memorable, terrifying performance because she contorts her body and she delivers this haunting Shakespeare dialogues with low register of her voice. In many ways, her character, which transforms into a raven, is the symbolism, the perfect symbolism for the whole movie because it just brings dread, doom, and death. This is by far one of my favorite witches in the history of cinema. All in all, this is the most visually striking version of the Scottish play that I've seen. It understands the tragedy, the absurdity of what it is to pursue power, to go descend on that madness, and doing whatever it takes, basically. So I think this movie earns its existence, and along with that supporting cast, everyone is magnificent in their roles. The only thing that's stopping me from giving this a perfect rating is it's just a matter of preference, just because I think I was able to connect more on Justin Kurzel's version. So I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5 stars. Do note that this work can be alienating to the casual viewer, but the thought of something as creative and as experimental as this will be shown in future use when it comes to literary purposes, for academic purposes, is just exciting, you know? So how about you guys? Have you seen this movie? Let me know what you think on the comment sections down below. Also give this video a like and subscribe to me for weekly reviews of movies and TV shows. Thank you so much guys for watching. Until then, I'll see you all on the next one.